You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome to the Psych with Mike library. I didn't put that on tape.
Good.
Yeah, we were having a discussion about lunch. So, last week we were talking about, first off, let's do introductions. I am Dr. Michael Mahan, and you are Mr. Brett Newcomb.
I am indeed. I always will be.
Yeah. I'm so excited about talking about this. I don't know how we've not talked about it before, but we haven't. So last week we were talking about making friends, and this week we are talking about what the difference between talking to a friend and talking to a therapist is. And I cannot even tell you how many times in therapy that comes up. Well, I'll just talk to my friends about it.
Yeah.
And
or they say, "Oh, you're just a paid friend."
Yeah. Oh, I love that one.
Like me,
yeah, you have to. Because I'm paying you. I'm like, I don't have to like you because you're paying me.
You like your boss? No, he pays you. Well,
exactly.
There you go. All right.
So, just your initial kind of first blush reaction. What is the difference between talking to a friend and talking to a therapist?
For me, talking to a therapist involves a level of vulnerability and openness that I don't often bring to friendship conversations. I'm willing, because of my understanding of the process and the nature of that relationship, I'm willing to be more emotionally naked with a therapist than I am with a friend, because I don't have the same investment in continuing the relationship. It's a very compartmentalized relationship, defined with boundaries. Whereas in a friendship, I have to think in terms of this friendship may last for years. Do I really want to put this particular feeling or behavior experience into the mix? I've made those choices at times, and they've cost me friendships. I've made those choices at times, and they've changed the friendship direction in a way I didn't want it to change.
So, do you equate that to being vulnerable? Do you believe that you're more vulnerable in the therapeutic relationship?
I think you need to be.
Okay.
If it works correctly, if everybody does their job right, you as the client need to come in with a presumption of vulnerability, of the willingness to be vulnerable. Take off your mask. So as a clinician, my skill set requires me to invite you to take off your mask. So what can I do or say that will encourage that risk-taking on your part?
Right.
I have to be perceived by you as open to you, non-judgmental, at least not yet, willing to sit in a space with you where you can be visible without directing you, judging you, condemning you, assaulting you. And I have to demonstrate that I see and hear you accurately as you are intending to convey the message. What is it you need me to get that other people are not getting about you?
And I've never been worried about the whole idea of the client coming in and taking off the mask. I've always been confident in my skills to see beyond the mask, even if the client is unwilling to let that be the case. And I think that sometimes that is what people are afraid of when they think about therapy is, oh, this person's going to see me more naked than anybody else ever has, and I don't know if I'm willing to allow that to be the case.
My perception is that I listen differently.
In a friendship than you do in therapy?
Yeah. If I'm over at a friend's house and they're sharing with me some difficulty that they're having with their mother, I am more likely to offer advice I am more likely to jump in on one side or the other, my friend's side typically, and say, well, your mom's a bitch. This is stupid what she's doing. As a clinician, I'm not going to do that, at least not initially, if ever. I'm going to say, tell me more. Where'd that come from? How do you understand it? Can we see the bigger picture? Is there more context? As a friend, I'm not going to interrogate you that way. I'm going to support you if I can. I'm going to give genuine emotional reactions. If I laugh, if I cry. But also in therapy, you give genuine emotional laugh. I mean, if you tell me something in therapy, I may laugh.
Right.
At inappropriate times, or I may cry. And say or I may get angry and say, you know what, I'm really angry that happened to you. I'm not angry with you. You didn't do anything, but I'm angry with these people for doing the things that hurt you. I have to give you a reflection back that says I see you and understand you where you are emotionally as a clinician that I don't necessarily have to do as a friend. So what we want to talk about is how, as a potential client, when you look at it, you say, well, therapy's expensive. Why can't I just go talk to my neighbor? My neighbor understands. And you can. You can go talk to your neighbor.
Oh, you absolutely can.
And you should talk to your neighbor.
Yeah.
But there's a point at which your neighbor's not going to be helpful in terms of how to understand this pattern. What do I need to learn about myself from this experience? So, hey, my wife left me. You can go over to my neighbor's house, and we're all friends. You know, my wife left me. Can I talk to you about what's been going on the last couple of months? Right. And they listen. They have perspectives. They give feedback. I can't believe she did that. It's really bad. I'm sorry you're hurt. What are you going to do about the kids? You know, what's going to happen to your job? Are you going to move? You know, give them empathic support. But as a clinician, at some point, I have to say, how did you contribute to that?
Yeah.
What did you see coming? What are the patterns of the way that you behave in relationships? What is your level of entitlement? How do you deal with anger? What's your emotional? How do you deal with intimacy? How do you deal with feelings in the relationship that are not things I would ask them as a friend?
Right.
I would ask them that as a clinician.
And I really genuinely think that when people say, oh, I'm going to go talk to my friend and it's the same as going to therapy, I really believe that 99% of people, I really believe that people know that's a ruse. And that the reason that they're not willing to take the leap and go to therapy is because of the fear of this exposure. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, but you didn't go to therapy. I've lived my entire life in therapy as an adult. You didn't go to therapy until later in life. And I don't know if that's because you were.
Well, I would talk to you about it, but you're my friend.
Yeah.
So.
Well, but I think our relationship is so much different. Our relationship really has always been more of a hybrid because we've spent hours on the road together going to Colorado with other people in the car, and you and I therapize each other like there's no tomorrow. And it just drives other people in the vehicle insane, even though you and I are still friends. So I think that our relationship is a little bit different, but I think for most people, if they're reluctant to go to therapy and they are telling themselves, well, I have a lot of good friends, I think that that's because they recognize that there's going to be a deeper level exposure in therapy and they're afraid of it. And, so what I would say to anybody who's doing therapy is it's your job to create that environment that makes therapy different than talking to a friend. Because I think there are some people, some therapists, who might envision themselves as just being a high-class paid friend. And I think that's
so,
wrong.
They're inadequately trained.
Yeah. Or inadequately performing. They may have been trained well, but they're not doing what they should be doing, in my opinion. So what do you do in therapy that makes that relationship different?
I am committed to making what we call the safe holding environment.
Yeah.
I am non-judgmental in a moralistic sense, committed to accurate, empathic, reflective listening. But I also look for patterns in what I see and what I hear and how I experience you in the room. If you display cueing that's significant to me, if I can see something coming, then at some point I want to point that out. Every time we get close to discussing something that might be painful or embarrassing for you, you cross your legs and make a joke. So I wonder what that means. I wonder how to understand it. Are you aware of it? Am I seeing it accurately? Do you recognize that you do that? No. Well, okay. Can I point it out to you when I see it happen so that I can learn whether or not I'm hearing you accurately? Because that's the most important thing right now, is that I need to accurately hear what you're saying. So I think that you're signaling something, and you may not know it. So can I point out so that I get it right? And not to catch you, not to embarrass you, but can I just, and so they say, yeah, of course. So then when I see it happen again, I say, you just coughed. And, no, I didn't. Oh, okay. I thought you did. Said, you just coughed. And eventually they're like, I just coughed, didn't I? You know, if you make that non-threatening, they learn to trust it and recognize it.
And I think that's probably, if not the single most important designation, it's one of the most important designations, is this idea of what's the difference between judgment and this identification of patterns. Because when you identify the pattern, that's existentially threatening to the client, because you are seeing them.
Well, if you rip away the defenses and identify the pattern, you shove their face in it. But if you invite them to become aware of it...
Well, but initially when they first hear that, so if I say, oh, I think you laugh to cover up insecurity, that feels threatening.
Or anger or vulnerability.
And so, but that's not a judgment.
Right.
That's just an observation. And so you have to, so I say up front, I'm never going to judge you. And then they say things, and when they first, start reporting information, I don't make a comment, and I just let that sit in the room so that they can see, okay, this person's not judging me. They're not correcting me. They're not giving me, critical feedback. And then as we start to ease into it, then I start to do this thing with the pattern where I say, oh, I think you may laugh when you're feeling insecure. And you're right. The first time they said, no, I don't think that's true. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But as you build that safe holding environment, they're able more to be able to hear that until eventually, yes, they even say, oh, I just laughed. And I know exactly why I was feeling insecure about it. And I think that's really one of the primary differences between therapy and a friendship. I don't think a friend is ever going to do that.
Yeah. They may not have the skills. They may not have the awareness. Same thing with dissociative process. If I dissociate, if we get close to something that's painful or threatening to me, and I just go away somewhere, that's usually displayed by some physical mannerism.
Yeah.
As a therapist, if I can see the pattern and recognize that you just went away somewhere, I can invite you to be aware of it. Your eyes just changed. What were we talking about? What were you in touch with? Do you recognize it? No, they didn't. Okay, all right. Yeah. So you work the piece, and every time their eyes change, you say, it feels to me like your eyes just changed. And then as they start to recognize that something is changing, both of you start to recognize there's a consistency thematically. We're talking about loss. We're talking about anger. We're talking about pain when this happens to you. So when we reach a certain level of closeness to it, you escape. This is how you escape. This signals that you're escaping. Now that you know that, you can begin to look at it differently. And we can discuss, what could you do instead of escape? What if you could sit with it for a few minutes, for as long as you can, and then when you need to escape, bail.
And I think that is so important, and really one of the toughest things to deal with is this idea of dissociation, because my most dissociative client, so dissociation for people, that's also what a lot of people call multiple personality disorder,
or an extreme end.
And so,
but we all have experience with that. mean, you break up with your girlfriend, and you're all devastated because you broke up with her. And
Oh yeah, we all dissociate.
and then you
yeah.
you pull up in a car and you're in her driveway. You didn't even know you were going over there. You've dissociated. So that's far short on the spectrum to being a multiple. Yeah. Right.
But I'm saying for people who do dissociate, maybe they know they dissociate, or maybe they don't know. But most people experience those changes as super threatening to any relationship, so they try and cover them up. And a lot of times it does cause a lot of angst in the relationship. The person changes, and there's this this destructiveness that then gets injected into the relationship, and a lot of people have real difficulty being able to cope with that. When you have a person who dissociates and you provide that non-judgmental, safe, holding environment for them, it might be the first time that they've ever experienced that in their lives.
You invite them to become aware of their own process and their own patterns, but you do it in a safe way, in a supportive way. You're not being judgmental. You're not being critical. Right. You're saying, oh, okay, this seems to be happening. Can you then learn to recognize your own body's messages to you when you cough, when you cross your legs, when you blink your eyes, and there's a change? Can you become aware of that? And then can you get ahead of the curve? Can you recognize the urge to cross your legs before you do it? And can you then say, wait, I want to stay here. I want to see what this is. And so you invite them to do that. And you have those conversations, and you work on teaching them first the self-awareness of the dissociative process. Then together you can explore, where's this coming from? What triggers this? What does it accomplish? And would you like to handle it differently? Would you like to have some other cards in the deck? We'll never take this away from you.
Right.
I used to tell my dissociative clients all the time, other people that are dissociative, that we used to call them survivors, other people that are survivors will recognize that you are a survivor because your mannerisms and defenses are going to be very similar. However, what they won't know, unless you choose to tell them, is what exactly you survived. So it's not like you're visible to the world, your shame, your embarrassment. It's like you have these skills that you learned the same way I learned them. We survived something horrible. Do we want to talk to each other about what that was? And the usual answer is no. Because, who are you? But we recognize this. We're scanners. We go into a room full of people and we scan. And we recognize the people that are scanning back. We don't know why they're scanning. We don't know what their issues are, what they're afraid of, what they're sad about. But we recognize they're survivors. And that would just really disorient them.
Yeah.
I thought I was well hidden. I thought I had learned how to cope.
Right.
I thought nobody would know. And I'm like, yeah, they know.
Because they're conditioned to cover that up, because it's threatening to a relationship.
I came from a physically abusive family. You came from a sexually abusive family. We have different experiences, but we learned similar defenses. So
let's take our break, and when we come back, we're going to change tracks.
All right.
If you've gotten this far into the show, then obviously you find the show to be worthwhile, beneficial, maybe even helpful. And so I just wanted to say, if you've gotten this far into the show and you want to help us out, even if you don't want to help us out, just do it anyway. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and leave a review. That is super helpful. Subscribe to the show on YouTube and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications when new shows drop. That stuff is really, really helpful for us. And I know that Mr. Brett agrees.
Absolutely. Reviews are positive. Positive reviews are more positive, but negative ones are as well, because it helps you decide how to focus and how whatever you're intending to say is being heard.
And the secret is the algorithm doesn't care whether the review's positive or negative.
As our friend Mike Norton says regularly, feedback is a gift.
If it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back, and in this article that I had sent to you, there was a list of things that may make therapy different than talking to a friend, and the very first one is something that I think is so important, and that's learning how to better manage your emotions. Yeah. And I don't know that anybody ever went into a conversation with their friend with the goal of learning how to better manage their emotions.
Yeah, I want you to make me angry so that I can learn how not to explode. More likely, we grew up learning things like get that look off your face, or you're not allowed to hit people, I'm allowed to hit people. I remember my first wife was punishing my older child, and he had done something. He got in a fight with a kid across the street, and she was scolding him, and she slapped him, and she said, "We don't hit people."
Yeah.
And I started laughing, and she was like, and so I got in big trouble.
Yeah.
I said, "What did you just teach him?" What you taught him was big people hit little people. People with power hit people that are weak. You didn't teach him we don't hit people.
Not when you were slapping him as you were saying we don't hit people.
Yeah. And she said, "But we do divorce people."
Yeah. Well, in the end, that may have been a blessing in disguise. Could have been.
One hopes.
Could have been.
Yeah.
But I think that if people are being honest with themselves, the difference between therapy and talking to a friend is about what you're hoping to get out of it. Because if you're going into therapy, so when you go talk to your friend, you want your friend to support you and tell you that you're right and everybody else is wrong.
Yeah, we'll start this happening to you. Can I buy you dinner?
Yeah, if you're going to therapy for that reason, then you're going to be disappointed, hopefully, because that's not what therapy is. And my guess is that that's really not what I think people know intuitively.
There's another element to that too.
Okay.
And friends will try to prevent you from experiencing extreme emotions.
Yeah.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
It's scary, and they don't know what to do with it. And so you are devastated and wailing in your pain. They're going to try to say, here, drink this, or eat that, or be quiet, or someone downstairs will hear you, or whatever, to get you to shut it off. Talking about managing your emotions, we want to put all the genies back in the bottle. Just be quiet and be still. A therapist is trained to sit with that and allow you to feel it.
Right.
I mean, it's a huge distinction between talking to a friend and talking to a therapist. In therapy, you may cry and wail your heart out, and they sit there calmly and affectionately looking at you saying, "It's going to be okay. Just breathe. Just breathe. Feel it. Feel what are you in touch with? When you're ready to talk about it, talk about it. But right now, don't fight it. Just be with it. And you're safe. We're here. Nobody can hurt you."
And another big distinction between therapy and talking to a friend is trying to relate present pathology to past experience. And you were talking about that when we were talking about dissociation, that tends to be something that happens to people who survive trauma.
Yeah, my friends don't usually try to relate my present pathology.
Exactly, to your past experience. So
they don't identify my present pathology.
And they certainly don't say, "Oh, Brett, how does what you're doing today, how did that come out of your experience when you were a kid growing up?" And that's something that we in therapy are good at doing, is trying.
My wife can do that. But she's crossing the line between being a therapist and a friend.
Yeah.
Because she'll say, "Why are you being a jerk?
Yeah.
It's your fault. You're the one that acted out. Go over there and apologize." Boy, I hate to hear that. She's always right, but I don't like it.
But also, maybe you're being a jerk because when you were younger...
We discussed that in therapy with the therapist, where this pattern come from, because I've been a jerk in more than one situation. So is there a commonality to my jerkiness that I need to become aware of if I want to change it?
Right.
If I want to have those situations stop occurring. So there's a level of trust and exposure and vulnerability, friend, wife, therapist. You're a married man. How does your wife deal with the fact that you're a therapist and you slide in and out of those modes? And you say, "Well, what I hear you saying is," and she says, "I don't want therapy, I want to fight."
Well, you've always said that your wife tells you that. My wife waits until I am acting like a complete boob, and then she says, "Is that what you would tell your clients?"
Yeah, is that what would you say to a client that said that?
Do you tell your clients that?
What would you say to a client that behaved that way?
I say, no, I would never tell my clients that.
I say, pay up.
Actually, I know what I say is,
before you leave the money.
I say, yes, I would absolutely tell my clients that because I'm a horrible therapist.
Yeah, exactly. Then she smirks knowingly.
So my hope is that ultimately the real difference between talking to a friend and talking to a therapist is when you walk out of your therapist's office, I hope you understand yourself better. And I'm not sure that people feel that way when they may walk away from a conversation with a friend and they may feel unconditionally supported. They may feel validated.
Positive energy because they agree with me or they like me, or even if they like me. But yeah, what did they learn?
But what did they, do they understand themselves intrinsically better than before that conversation started? And my hope is when you leave therapy, you do.
So for clinicians listening to this conversation, hopefully you're thinking about these things because there are certainly boundary issues that occur. You are known in the community as being a clinician. Your friends in the community are going to have troubles with their marriages, troubles with their bosses, troubles with their children, and they're going to want to come and talk to you as a friend. Well, you're my friend, but you're also a therapist, so you know these things. You have to have really good boundaries. Be very careful about taking on clients that are connected within your circle. And general recommendations, don't do it. Say, I'm your friend. I can listen to you as a friend, but let me give you a name of somebody to have your child talk to or have your, whatever, or you go talk to, because I can't do therapy with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because of these reasons, taking off those masks, reflecting patterns, experiencing vulnerability at a level that we can't do and still be friends.
And if you're a therapist and people are coming to you all the time and saying, hey, will you talk to so-and-so? Then what I would argue is you're probably not really displaying to people what those boundaries are.
Right.
Because you and I both know that in all of our combined 70 plus years of doing therapy, that it's pretty rare for people to come to you and say, hey, will you talk to so-and-so? So when they do it, it's because it's really extreme. But yet it does happen occasionally. And what I always say is, look, I'll have a conversation, just as you said, as a friend, and this one time, but we're not going to repeat that. And you have to go talk to somebody, and I'll give you a name, I'll give you a referral. One
of the things that I feel the need to say, therapists need to be in collegial or hierarchical supervision on a regular basis. You need to be talking to someone about how you understand these things, approach these things, where your feeling contaminants are, how your boundaries remain, so that you can avoid making those kind of mistakes. If you just practice and see people and you don't have an offset filter to go and process with, you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Or they're going to get you in trouble because you don't have the good boundaries. One of the most important ways to maintain good clinical boundaries is to have regular supervision. So if you're out there, make sure you're in supervision. It doesn't have to be hierarchical. It doesn't have to be an LPC has a psychologist who has a psychiatrist. It just has to be technical and official, formal, with acknowledged boundaries. So be sure that you're in supervision.
And if we were going to wrap this up, and if there was one thing that you would say to people that is the distinction, that is the summation of this distinction, what would you say that was?
The professional skill set of the clinician.
And I would say that I think this is a corollary to that, but the education of the clinician.
Well, it's how one acquires.
Which is the professional skills, right? Yeah. But I would never underestimate that. There's, the human brain is the most complex machine that we know of in the universe. And the idea that we're all just, psychologists because we've lived in this mortal coil is ridiculous.
I read a couple of books. I know something.
Yeah. Yeah, or I watch TV, and I like to watch a lot of psychological drama show. No, that isn't what makes TV writing does not help you understand the human condition. Going to school and understanding psychology is what helps you better understand the human condition and gives you the ability, the skill sets, as you just said, to be able to dispense that knowledge in a way that is beneficial, that really does help people genuinely understand themselves better.
I see it differently than you described it.
Okay.
I'm not a dispenser of knowledge. I'm not a dispenser of answers. I have some professional skills that I use solely for the purpose of understanding you accurately and seeing you the way that you need to be seen, and offering a safe mirror for you to look into so that you can make decisions about changes.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by dispense the knowledge, is that we've been educated.
Well, I think words matter, and I just hear it differently.
Yeah, but if we're taught to do that, and then we are able to provide that safe holding environment, that's different than what a friend would do.
I want you to understand, in my own life, where I'm emotionally invested and living in the moment, I screw up all the time. And I have these issues in my life that you have in yours. It's when I come in here with the boundaries of the room and the officialness of the relationship that I can separate myself out from my own stupidity sometimes. And things come out of my mouth that are direct pass-through. They're not things that I read out of a book. They're things that I just experienced in the present moment with you of our mutual honesty. But when I'm out amongst them, I don't require that of myself. And I can get road rage. I can get mad at because somebody pulled out in front of me and didn't go when the light changed. I can get mad because somebody took the last package of M&Ms from the store shelf that I wanted. I mean, we're human, and we have those stupid things that happen to us. So therapists are not saints. They aren't all-knowing. They don't dispense wisdom, but they can listen and dispense support. So they should.
And as always, we would tell people that listening to this podcast is not a substitute for going to therapy. So it is important that if you want to understand yourself better, if you want to learn how to regulate your own emotions better, listening to the podcast is fine. That's great. We love that. But you need to find a good person that you can trust to do that work with.
Well, one of the essential elements of therapy is that you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So this is not very therapeutic, but should you find it to be therapeutic, we do accept donations. You can send them in.
Do you want to give a P.O. Box number?
No, I'll let you handle all that.
So you can get us on the internets at Psych with Mike on Facebook and Twitter. You can contact us through psychwithmike.com, where you can find additional episodes. You can go to iTunes and give us a rating and leave us a review. That is really beneficial. But go to the YouTubes. If you haven't done this yet, go to YouTubes, even if that isn't how you traditionally listen to the show, and subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications, because that is really beneficial for us. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.